Hello, my name is Sean Sperry, and in this video we're going to do the second of 3 videos on upgrading to Spectrum Protect 10.1.11. The details of this whole upgrade process are defined in these tech notes that you see down here. They're very detailed and give you all of the information on what you might need to do depending on how complex your configuration is. So I would highly encourage you to, before you begin this migration to 10.1.11, to go ahead and read through those tech notes so you can see the process and get a big picture. Just some important notes that come out of the tech notes. We strongly recommend that you upgrade all of the vSnap servers before you migrate the SPP server. These upgrades can require some downtime in your environment, and depending on how many vSnaps you have, it could be a longer process. So our recommendation is to go through one by one and do each one of the vSnaps. First, your environment can continue to run while you're in the process of doing all the vSnaps in your environment. And then finally, as your last step, go ahead and upgrade the Spectrum Protect Plus server. The minimum levels before migration, as you can see, we do recommend 10.1.9 or 10.1.10. I upgraded to 10.1.10 iFix 2 before I did my migration in my environment. And these upgrades are really easy, so I would strongly recommend that you start with the latest version of 10.1.10 before you go ahead and do the migration to 10.1.11. This is the demo that we're going to do in this video. I apologize for it being a little long, but it is a somewhat detailed process. What we're going to do is we're going to hold all the schedules and jobs, and then we're going to back up the configuration of the vSnap. We're going to power it off, and then we're going to take those disks and deploy them to a new RHEL version 8 vSnap that we go out there and add to VMware. Finally, we're going to go ahead and restore that configuration and then reattach the disks to the RHEL 8 vSnap server. That is our appliance. So for this example in this video, what I'm going to do is upgrade the vSnap in my small environment. I have 2 vSnaps, one source, one target, and a Spectrum Protect Plus server. As I mentioned in these bullet points, I am going to do the replication target first, simply because that's the least risk. So I'm going to kind of get the feel of the process by doing the vSnap replication target first, and then I'll go back and do the source, and then finally do the Spectrum Protect Plus server. Again, I would strongly encourage you to read the documentation before you do this. There's a lot of different examples in there and some contingencies for some more complex environments, so you should read that. And I would also encourage you to take a look at these other 2 videos that I did. One that is a migration overview, and then one that is the Spectrum Protect Plus server. So I am ready to start the upgrade on this Spectrum Protect Plus environment. And what I am going to do is I am going to focus first on this replication server, vSnap Remote SOS. And as you can see, it is running the latest version of 10.1.10. And I have not upgraded my Spectrum Protect Plus server yet. So as a strategy for this small environment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upgrade both of the vSnap servers first, and then I'm going to upgrade the Spectrum Protect Plus server. Now, as you can see, this is a VMware environment. This vSnap local SOS is a VADP server, and this vSnap remote SOS is not. So I'm not going to have to worry about the VADP parts of this in this upgrade. And I personally think it's a wise idea to start with the replication server first. It is the backup, so to speak, so I'll kind of get a little experience with that as before I go forward and upgrade my primary vSnap. Now I have up here my vSphere environment, so the vSphere web client is here, and I also have at hand my TechNote that is kind of guide me through the upgrade process. First thing I'm going to do is, and as you can see, I have logged on to this vSnap using my server admin ID. I like to make a little directory called migrate to put my migration information in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in that directory. I'll minimize that. Just taking a quick look here at this environment. My IP address is 9.11 is .51. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead here in FileZilla. I think I have a .51 set up here. I'll do a connect, and I'll go ahead and log on. Now, as you can see here, I kind of have ready to go here all of the I have downloaded from Passport Advantage the new appliances that I'm going to migrate to. So my version 10.1.11 vSnap, my version 10.1.11 Spectrum Protect Plus server, and I have my two scripts that I've downloaded from the TechNote there that I am going to upgrade to this vSnap server to export and get the configuration out. I'll go to this temp migrate directory, and I'll go ahead and upload this script to this directory. Now I'm just going to follow along. I've actually done this before, but in a practice session, but I'm just going to kind of follow along this TechNote here to kind of follow the steps. They want me to collect the information on the old vSnap. If your vSnap had been sized using the sizer, you would of course need to gather that information so that you could size the new appliance with the same configuration. For me, I'm going to use the default information in the vSnap because it is a small appliance. So here we are looking at the host name, looking at the network configuration. Let's take a look at the pools and the disks. So I'll go here and I'll do a vSnap pool show. And notice I have one pool that was created for me. And I'll do a vSnap disk show. And on this particular machine, I have the disks that come with the appliance. I'm going to have my default 100 gig vSnap pool that came with the appliance, and I've added 100 gig. So I have a total of 200 gig on this machine. So I am going to migrate those two disks to the new vSnap. So that's the two disks I'm going to take over. I'll go ahead and do a vSnap volume show just to get a count. And this is what I'll use to verify that everything has been migrated over correctly. So that number is 7. And I have 7 volumes. And I'll also count the snapshots that are over on this machine. And as you can see, I have 73 snapshots. Okay, and I'm going to save that information just so I can validate once the migration is complete. I happen to know I do not have any multipathing information on here. This is a relatively simple vSnap with one network adapter, so that should be okay. This is also a relatively small Spectrum Protect Plus server. So I really have run all my jobs for the night to do my backups. But just to be safe, just as if this were a regular environment, I'm going to go ahead and hold all of the jobs on the Spectrum Protect Plus server, as recommended in the documentation. So there's my pause all the jobs. I am going to not remove the replication partnerships in my case. You can optionally do that as recommended in step 4 or as discussed in step 3. We already looked at the VADP proxy situation. This is a replication partner. It's not a proxy, so I'm not going to remove the VADP proxy on this vSnap server because it doesn't exist. Next thing I'm going to do is disable the vSnap software. And basically that's just removed the symlink that started the daemon. And then I'll do a reboot. Okay. So that's going to reboot the virtual machine that is my vSnap server. I'll wait for that to come back up for a second. I'll go ahead and log back in. And I'll just go ahead and verify the status. And what I'm looking to make sure is that the vSnap software is indeed down. And sure enough, vSnap is indeed down. So just continuing, next thing I'm going to do is run the backup script. So what I'll do is here, and I put my script in temp migrate, and I'll update the permissions on that script. And now my script is executable. And now I'm ready to run the export of the vSnap configuration information. So here we go. I'll go ahead and just grab that command, which is basically just running the script and teeing a copy for the log. So there's my backup. And now what I'm going to do is go back over here to FileZilla. Information in the home server admin directory. So let me go to the right directory here. And here is my backup log, which I'll grab. And my backup configuration information from this vSnap. And now I'll go ahead and just shut down that old vSnap. So that's going to conclude this first part of the migration, which is getting the information out of the old vSnap and shutting things down. Now I'm going to move on to the second part, which is setting up the new 10.1.11 vSnap based on RHEL 8 and importing the information and moving the disks. Okay, so here we are. Just as a recap of where we are, we have backed up the old machine configuration and we have shut down the old machine. We have taken a note of all of the configuration of the hardware in terms of RAM and CPU. So now I'm ready to import the new virtual machine. So I have downloaded my 10.1.11 template. So there it is, downloaded from Passport Advantage. I'll go ahead and do a next. I'm going to name my new machine vSnap Remote SOS 10.11 because I want to just differentiate it, and that'll help me keep track of what's the old and what's the new. So that is what I'm going to go ahead and name it. I'll go ahead and bring it into my cluster. And I know I downloaded this from Passport Advantage, so I'm going to go ahead and accept that. I'll go ahead and accept the license. I'm going to put it on my Tanzu data store. I'll take the default DIC provisioned. I'll go ahead and pick my right distributed switch. I'm going to go ahead and take the default import configuration parameters because I like to set my networking information after I import. So we'll go ahead and let that import run, and I will jump forward to after the import is complete. Okay, so my import is now complete of the OVF. Here I have my new virtual machine. I'm now ready to boot it for the first time. If I did need to configure CPUs or RAM, according to what was configured on the old one, I could go in here and do that now. I'm just going to use the default in the case of my example, so I'm going to go ahead and power that machine on. Now, this is a default blank vSnap server as downloaded from Passport Advantage running RHEL 8. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is go in here and set up the networking and also set up the password for this machine. It will have the default passwords. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the web console for this one. Let it boot. And now I am ready to log on. And here I'm going to use the default username and the default password and then set my new password. So we'll log in as server admin. And once again, and my new password. My new password again. And now I have my password wheel set. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do a sudo nmtui. I'll set my system host name to vSnap remote SOS. And again, this host name is not going to conflict with the old one because remember the old one is down and just sitting there ready to be retired. So there I am setting my information. If I needed to set my networking information, I could do it up there and edit a connection. I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and reset it. In my case, my DNS will be and IP address will be automatically assigned on boot. We'll go ahead and let the system boot. And so this is a brand new RHEL 8 vSnap with no storage attached to it. That has the default information on it, but has the correct networking. I'll go ahead and take a look and see what address I got. I got assigned 9.11.221.60, and note it picked up my DNS name appropriately for my environment. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and log on to that machine. Note it's a brand new machine, so I'm going to have to accept the fingerprint. And then I will log on, and now I have my new machine sitting there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the temp directory to restore the disk configuration. And I'll make a directory called migrate. And there's my directory where I'm going to put my information. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll close these two tabs just to ensure that I do not get confused. I'll go ahead and As you can see, I'm just following the documentation here. What I've done at step 7 is I've deployed and configured the new vSnap server running 10.1.11 and changed the password and updated the password. Now it's asking me to stop the vSnap daemon, which I will go ahead and do. Again, making sure I'm on the right machine here. So I'll go ahead and stop the vSnap daemon. And I'll also disable the vSnap daemon so it does not start when I boot. So I'll go ahead and grab that. And now my vSnap daemon is disabled. So wants me to check that everything is down, so I'll do a vSnap status, and indeed everything is down, so that is goodness. I've already customized the network configuration. And I didn't have any other custom configurations on the partitions on the old server. So now I'm ready to restore the backed up configuration. And I will go ahead and upload that using FileZilla. I have a new IP address here, which is .60. And I'll go ahead and establish a new connection, new machine. So it's going to have me accept it. I'm going to go to the migration. I'm going to go ahead and restore. So I'll need my vSnap config restore script, and I'll also need my backup file. Going back over here, just taking a quick look at my documentation here. To permissions on the restore script. And it wants me to go ahead and initialize the system without creating the pool. So I'll go ahead and run that command. Go ahead and let that complete. It should complete in a minute or two. And now it wants me to go ahead and restore the configuration. So I'll go ahead and grab that command. So I'm going to run the script. My file is going to be okay. So now the config restore has been successful, and I now have my configuration restored from the old vSnap. Next, what I'm going to do is re-enable the vSnap. And I will go ahead and shut down the system. And I am going to go ahead and, just so I don't have to wait, I didn't give it the shutdown command, so I'm going to go ahead and do it this way and make sure it is completely powered off. And wait for it to completely go down. Okay. And now my next step is going to be to reattach the 200 gig disks that I saw on the old vSnap to this new vSnap that I just created. So what I'll go ahead is I'll do here, I'll go to my new one, which is conveniently labeled with a 1011. I'll do edit VMware hardware, and I will add an existing hard disk. And I could look, but I do know that those two disks are in this Tanzu data store under remote SOS, and it's my 200 giggers. So it's going to be that one and that one. Those are the two operating system disks. So I'll go ahead and attach that one. I'll go ahead and attach my second one. So that second 100 gigger there. And then I'll do a OK. And so now my disks are reattached. And now when I reboot, my new vSnap, I should be back up. My disks should be attached. My vSnap should have started. And since the configuration has been restored, all should be right with the world on the vSnap end. It'll take a second to boot. Let me go ahead and log on. And I should have still gotten the same IP address, but let me go ahead and check to make sure here. We'll go ahead and let it boot first. And yes, I did get the same DNS name and IP address. So I'll go ahead and connect back in. And then let's go ahead and take a look at and do some verification. If I go ahead here and do a vSnap system info, vSnap pool show, and vSnap disk show. Let me go ahead and get this to where we can see it. So there's my vSnap running, and its status is ready. vSnap pool show. I have one pool. If I do a vSnap disk show, I should see my vSnap pool, my 200 gig disks that I migrate out of there, and you can see that they are attached with the name of dev SDC and dev SDD. Let's go ahead and do a vSnap volume snow and vSnap snapshot show, and we'll count things just to make sure we have the same numbers. So I had 7, and if you recall, I had 7 volumes when I started. And we'll also take a look at the snapshot show command. And do a verification there with the right syntax, and I had 73, and I had 73 on the other side. So it looks like this vSnap is good. I have the same number of snapshots after the migration and the same number of volumes. So that is a good thing. Now, with regard to the certificates, in my case, my vSnap server has the same name before the migration and after the migration. I made sure of that. So from a certification perspective, I shouldn't have any problems. There is a section in here on if the DNS names have changed, or if any of that information might have changed. Spectrum Protect Plus has got a lot stricter on the certificate verification, so you might have to do some work here to clean up and make things reattached. I should not have to go through that on my system. If I go to Spectrum Protect Plus and go to Storage and go to vSnap Servers, you'll see that I am reattached here, and I am indeed running 10.1.11-53. And if that didn't show up immediately, I could do a refresh and get all of that information back. So just the final steps, a couple of the cleanup steps. What I'm going to do here is go back to Spectrum Protect Plus. I'll go ahead and go to Jobs and Operations here, and I'll do Release All Schedules. And all my schedules are now idle, so my system is now back in production. I have the upgraded vSnap. As a final step, you'll note that I did not create any delete any VADP proxies or any replication partnerships in my example. There are a couple extra steps that the documentation recommends you do, and one of those is to run this command to fix the permissions. So I'll go ahead and copy this, and I'll go ahead here. I happen to be running as server admin. So I'll go ahead and do that command. And then as a final step, for safety purposes, reclamation has been disabled. And after I had run for a couple days, I could run these commands to go ahead and restart reclamation. So I'll just go ahead and run them now. And restart maintenance. And now I am finished, and my vSnap is running. Now, just as a last step, I could go in here and unregister this system. Now, just to remember, the vSnap disks are still located in that system's directory and are potentially associated with that system. So I don't really want to delete, I definitely don't want to delete the underlying files, but I'll just remove it from inventory just in order to prevent from getting confused. And now my migration is complete, and my 10.1.11 vSnap is up and running. So I hope you found this information useful and this video useful. I'm sorry it was so long, but I wanted to kind of cover at least the majority of steps just so you could see it done. See you in the next video.